Hey everybody, this is the Inside Handoff, episode 4. I am your host, Johnny V, and it's truly a pleasure to be here with you guys as we inch ever closer towards opening week in the NFL. That's 4 fingers on each hand. If you're not
That
watching,
equals 8.
that's 2 hands independent of each other, not cumulative. There's no thumbs, because it's 4 fingers on each hand. Like it's not the 8 horsemen when you throw up all 8. People did that. Shut up. Don't mock me.
Okay, Mongo.
That's,
They're making jokes that I don't understand.
what you don't know Blazing Saddles? So we're doing Blazing Saddles jokes. No.
That
Well,
movie was like 3 decades before Zach was born.
all right. No, seriously though, this is the 4th episode of the Inside Handoff, and we got a fair amount of time. It's been a busy week in camp this week. We got some signings, some trades, some IR moves, and just general leapfrogging on the depth chart, as is expected. I'm Boyle Boy. It's going to be a great night. I look forward to it, and we're going to have some fun tonight. All right, and joining me as always are my 2 co-hosts. Jer, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Just trying to catch up on everything that's been going on the past 3 days. It's like just this insane amount of NFL news that's coming out, and we're prepping for this show within the past hour, and Johnny's telling me, "Oh, hey, two added news bits just dropped within the past hour," and I'm like, you can't keep up with this stuff. I mean, it's preseason. We're what, 2 weeks away from the regular season, so it's everything's moving, and we're getting ready for kickoff soon, boys.
It's going to keep us on our toes. This is what happens when you have a fixed recording time-ish. Or,
Mm-hmm.
things are going to drop, and it's going to be like, last-minute edition! No, you don't get to research this topic.
That's what happens when you're the only football podcast in existence.
That's right.
We got to stay on the ball with these things.
Um, all right, Zach, how you doing this week?
Like Jared saying, all I do is prep.
I'm sorry.
But-
Don't go outside for the next few minutes. You might get struck by lightning.
Zach's putting that PFF subscription to good use.
But
I can't make a PFF joke without swearing.
I'm here to tell you my opinion. I'll tell you that. As my
That-
friends tell me.
That's how it works. I keep us on topic and come up with the topics. Jer brings the facts, and Zach brings all the opinions because he has a lot of them.
Well,
All
I
right,
like
we're
your
gonna.
shirts. I like your shirts.
Aren't they nice? We're rocking our pro wrestling affiliations here. Yeah. I'm wearing the OG.
Yeah, but my shirt has a bandana, so therefore mine is cooler.
I'd say my shirt has a skeleton and 2 AKs on it, but I think yours does too if you go down far enough. Yeah.
My AKs have tassels.
Yeah, okay. Mine's the OG. All right.
Mhm.
Mine is the shirt that the dynasty was built on. How about
Yeah,
that?
but is no longer the number one selling shirt on that website.
It hasn't been that for a long time. All right. Before this morphs into a wrestling podcast and Zach falls asleep on us, um, let's jump right into football. We got a lot of stuff to cover this week. And let's break the huddle. All right, first news topic of the week. Highly touted draft pick set to come into his new team and join his college teammate. Travis Etienne already on the IR. That's what does that do in Jacksonville? Like, now obviously we don't know how long he's actually going to be out for. It is a foot injury, so it's not a his year is done injury. It's a minimum 4-week injury, so we may still see him this season. But how does this affect Jacksonville, especially with this happening, halfway through camp?
I think the main thing is all aboard, everybody back on that James Robinson bandwagon after everybody jumped off back in May. Um, I think, and it's the offense will be fine. I mean, I think Urban Meyer was going to use Travis Etienne as more of a decoy. They're not going to. He's not going to be a bell cow, run the ball up the middle, and get you 12 yards. That's not his forte as far as his position. And I think Urban Meyer is creative enough of a coach that he wasn't going to use Etienne like that. James Robinson still is RB1 for that team. And it sucks that he got hurt because he didn't get much time to really show off any playmaking ability. We don't know what Travis Etienne looks like in the NFL. And we're not going to get that opportunity, at least not for the next, couple weeks. So it's hard because myself included, but a lot of people were really looking forward to seeing, okay, they've drafted two of Clemson's best offensive weapons in the past 2 years, and let's see what they look like on an NFL field. Now, to be fair, playing against Alabama is like playing against an NFL team. So, I mean, we've seen them look good against an NFL caliber team. And I think it was just, it sucks. And another cool thing about Travis Etienne was not only we weren't able to see any of his playmaking ability, but he scored in 46 of 55 career games in college, which is just phenomenal. It's insane, So, and we're robbed of that skill player, showing off in the NFL, and we don't know what he would have looked like in that offense. I was excited to see how they were going to fit him in. Was he going to be a pass catching back? Was he going to, run to the outside? We don't know exactly how Urban Meyer was going to fit him into the offense, and we're going to have to wait a little longer to find out.
Zach?
So when it comes to, like, Jared basically said what happens fantasy-wise, like, you want to get back on that Robinson bandwagon. When it comes to impacting the Jaguars this season, probably a win, maybe two on the record. You know what I mean? Overall, I don't think ATN was about to tip the scale. That team has a lot of work before they're going to be, playoff caliber, I believe. I think others believe the same thing. But overall, it's a loss. You never want to see anybody obviously get hurt. You really don't want to see a kid early in his development years get hurt. You know what I mean? It's just a year of practice he doesn't get done. You know what I mean? That's unfortunate. A year of reps during the season he doesn't get in. And what people don't really acknowledge is you're not yourself come back the first year either. So, you know what I mean? You're more like spending the first year trying to get back to yourself. So it's almost like 2 years of development you lose when a young player gets hurt. You lose the injury year and then use the following year because he's kind of just trying to get back to where he was previously. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate. It's mainly just unfortunate for the long run. I don't think this season it really affects much. But in the long run of the team, those things you never want to see. It's just like the Cam Akers situation. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a tough one. I mean, I don't think this is gonna quite go as far as ruining him, this season and next season because we'll still see him this season. It sucks that it happens in the training camp, where you're learning everything, but I still think we'll see him probably around mid-season. I think when he comes back.
I like in theory, medically he might be cleared. You know what I mean? But will it make if Jacksonville will say only has 3 wins and there's 4 weeks left? Does it make sense to bring him back on the risk of him? You know what I mean? Injuring it when you could just rehab it for another month when you're going to be a losing team either way. And at that point, a win doesn't even benefit you. It actually is a negative because you're just searching for the better draft pick.
He's not going to be at 100%. If it goes that long, then I think you're probably right and you just keep him off the field. And
From
don't.
what the injury, like AJ Hawk and Pat McAfee were talking about it, and from what they said, this is typically a lingering injury. So, like, they're expecting him to be out for the year. I know they're not doctors or anything like that, but they've seen enough guys with these kind of injuries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if we can guess it, I'm sure they have an even better educated guess. And unless they're in a place where they're competing for a playoff spot, I don't really see him playing this season. Again, who am I? But that's just from all the things I've been hearing around.
I mean, it's entirely possible that that's the case. I don't think
There's no
so,
guarantee.
but again, stranger things have happened. All it takes is coming back, and just getting re-injured, and that's long term even worse. But we can Oh my goodness, I can't speak English tonight. We can.
So it's your average Wednesday night.
Just
Boy!
Give it up, man.
We can speculate, not the word I was going for, but still effective. It's a synonym. We can speculate all we want on what may or may not happen, but like you said, we're not doctors, and we don't even play any on TV, so we don't even have that going for us. So we can pontificate and wax poetic all we want, but at the end of the day, it don't mean squat, and we'll just have to wait and see. That's really all we can do is wait and see. We can talk about worst case scenarios and best case scenarios, but wait and see is really all we can do because we're not doctors. Contrary to what the average Monday morning quarterback might have you think, they do not have a medical degree. In most cases, I'm sure doctors who play Monday morning quarterback who, can say the opposite. I am a doctor, but that's just. None of us are. All right, let's move on to the next topic, and that is Robbie Anderson signed a 2-year extension, continuing sort of that trend where we have at least one extension to talk about each week of the show so far. His is a 2-year extension worth $29.5 million. I have no idea what the guarantees are on that. I don't think that was ever revealed or anything. So yeah, what do you think, Robbie Anderson? 2 years, $29.5 million.
That is a absolute win by the Carolina Panthers. They are not locked to anything really. Like that's just all upside deal. Like if Robbie Anderson came out this year, first of all, Sam Darnold and him have that connection from the Jets. So if he came out here this year and this is the first year with 17 weeks. I also want to add that, 17 games, sorry. So stats are going to be skewed. So it's going to be a weird year for the offseason market. You know what I mean? Guys are going to have 1,000-yard years that wouldn't be a 1,000-yard year, So it's going to be a little bit different negotiating. So if he had a good year this year, he could very have locked himself up to like a 4-year contract with even more per year with a big guarantee. Like, I think them getting this deal done now, assuming that the chemistry is there and all that stuff, he's a good wide receiver. I think a great deal on their end. And for a player, I think it's never a bad thing to just have money come your way, especially that kind of high money. So it's a win for him as well. You're walking away with roughly $15 million a year. Good for you and good for them.
Yeah, I think it's not only is it a good move for Carolina, but I think it's the move they had to make. I mean, their wide receiver room is looking a little thin as far as star players in their wide receiver room right now. Robbie Anderson exceeded his 2020 expectations with 95 catches for almost 1,100 yards, which are both career highs, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, not great fantasy wise, but I mean, as far as putting up good playing numbers, he's a guy in Carolina. He caught 69.9% of his targets, and I think it comes down to Sam Darnold improving in Carolina. If he improves, then Robbie Anderson, the sky is the limit for him because it's going to be better quarterback play in a different offense. That's another thing. Darnold to Anderson in a different offense, how's that going to look? And I think it. Go ahead.
But no, I was just gonna. It's a different offense for Sam. Robbie ran this offense last year and in college as well, right? Because that's his college coach, and so
Yep.
Robbie's fairly familiar with it. But you do have a point with Sam.
Yeah,
That's
I
for
think
sure.
I think Sam is the wild card as far as Anderson's value going up.
Oops.
You know, I think there's potential. I'm kind of on the fence about it, only because the offense goes through Christian McCaffrey. You know,
I mean,
so
let's also point out that last season Robbie Anderson had a career year.
absolutely. You know, so if he's going to get paid, this is the time he's going to get paid. You
I
know,
mean,
That's why I think it's a pretty good steal for only a 2-year deal for them. You know what I mean? Like he is coming off a career year, and if he doubled down on that year, that's some consistency. I think he was going to be looking at a nice. I think we're all on the same point. It's a good deal, right? Like
yeah,
I
I
think
agree. It's a good
the
deal for
time, like
team
you were
and
saying,
player.
you were there. You nailed it on there. The timing is perfect. The timing is like now is the time.
Exactly, because he was only signed for another year, I think. And let's say he puts up another career year, then okay, he's got all the bargaining chips on his end of the table. So you sign him to a good deal now, keep him around for 2 years. If he has career years again, then we might be looking at a playoff team if McCaffrey stays healthy, if Darnold exceeds expectations, which granted aren't very high for Sam Darnold. You know, I think he's got an uphill climb. I think there's potential there for that offense, but we'll see what
I
happens.
think that's where the big question mark comes in, right? Is he did have a career year last year, but that was without Christian McCaffrey in that offense. How much of those numbers, obviously him and DJ kind of feasted last year. Both had amazing seasons, and that's without Christian. You re-add Christian to that though, and suddenly he's going to take a lot of those touches because like you said, that offense does run through him, and that's not about to change when you've got a talent like Christian McCaffrey who plays the way he does out of that backfield. There's a lot of those catches that they made last year are going to be McCaffrey touches this year. So, I mean, it certainly makes sense because you're right. It is a short-term deal. It's 2 years, so they're not locking themselves down with him for long term. This kind of gives them that feeling out process, right? Like if 2 years is enough time to know, are you going to continue to put these numbers up with Christian back there, or was it a one and done anomaly because of Christian being hurt? And only time can tell that. And like Zach said, we add the extra game, which is already going to skew numbers upwards. Because obviously it's 4 quarters of football that didn't exist a year ago. You know what I
No.
mean? And we saw the numbers like historic. You'd have to go back a long time to the last time they changed the schedule, but you saw those numbers go up then in a big way. So one extra
Yeah,
game.
I think that's another point. Robbie Anderson's numbers are a direct result of necessity in that offense. Christian was hurt. The run game was fine. It was Mike Davis, I believe.
Yeah.
Was the back? Yeah. Okay. So, and he put up great numbers. He was a serviceable back. He's jacked if you've seen pictures of him. But I think he's not. At the end of the day, he's not Christian McCaffrey. So when you have McCaffrey back in that offense, the offense is going to run through him first. Run first, pass second. That being said, if Anderson is as good and it was just an anomaly that Christian was hurt, then all facets of that offense start picking up. Sam Darnold has a great year, and Carolina might be a sleeper team that nobody talks about in the preseason, and all of a sudden, we're going into week 13 and they've got 10 wins. So, a lot of moving parts there, I think, could possibly come together if everybody stays healthy and keeps up with, previous performance.
There's certainly great potential in that offense because it is being so greatly underlooked. I mean, in part because it is in one of the tougher divisions in football, or at least historically tougher divisions. Whether or not that's still the case now, we'll have to wait and see. But historically, that's one of the toughest divisions. We don't know now. Whether or not it's still going to be that or not. Obviously, Drew retiring has a huge effect on easing the level of competition in that division, because no matter how much of that offense stayed the same, you take out a Hall of Fame quarterback and plug in a guy with let's say, eclectic history of success that Jameis Winston has had. It certainly changes the outlook on how tough that division's going to be. All right, let's move on to the next topic, and this one is on here mostly. I don't want to say mostly, but at least in part because of the fact that he was such a huge topic of last week's conversation, and that is after AJ McCarron tore his ACL and was placed on the IR, Josh Rosen has been chosen to join Atlanta, presumably as the backup to Matt Ryan. Yeah, what do you guys think? I know we spent a lot of time last week talking about Josh, and I don't want to say issues he has, but ways that football hasn't gone his way. But this is the first time he's actually been really brought in as the backup. To stand behind, and let's be real. Matt Ryan is a pretty good quarterback. He's not a world eater, but he helped take that offense to a Super Bowl not too long ago. So this can't hurt Rosen, I guess. Is there anything, like I said, we spent a lot of time talking about Rosen last week. Is there anything either of you guys want to add to him in Atlanta as far as his outlook?
I think this is less about Rosen. We covered a lot of ground last week concerning Rosen himself, his faults, his mitigated successes. This is more about the situation he's stepping into. And I think Rosen likely isn't seeing the field at all. Matt Ryan has missed 3 starts in 13 years. So, Rosen's going to stand there, hold the clipboard, and,
learn.
Yeah, and get AJ McCarron some Gatorade because he can't move. I don't think...
Well, AJ's at home now. It's torn ACL.
Well, he'll be back sitting on the bench by week 4.
He'll be up in the booth, so he can't bring him Gatorade.
He can. Well, he'll have time. He can go bring it up there to him. I think Rosen is. It's an emergency situation. He's serviceable. That offense is a different offense now, with no Julio, with a rookie at tight end, with ungodly expectations. And, I think Rosen is just an emergency guy that, hey, we need a backup that can come in just in case Matt Ryan, stubs his toe or something. And, I don't think it's going to change anything because I don't think Matt Ryan is going to miss any time. And, it is what it is. Rosen's fine in that situation. He's not expected to lead the offense week to week. And I think the expectations for Atlanta aren't particularly great at the moment anyways. They've got some pass catchers. But overall, I don't think, Matt Ryan is... And another thing, Matt Ryan isn't a long-term answer for that team either. And Rosen is obviously just a short-term Band-Aid on, a what-if issue. So it is what it is. Rosen's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. Atlanta's offense is going to run through Matt Ryan anyways. And, it is what it is.
So if Matt Ryan gets hurt, good luck, Josh Rosen. I genuinely mean it. Good luck. You know what I mean? I hope the best for him. 2, if he does, he will have the best weapons he's ever thrown to. So no excuses. He may not. Don't mean kill it. You don't have to put up Matt Ryan numbers, but you can't do what you did in the past. 3, I really hope Matt Ryan doesn't get hurt for the sake of Kyle Pitts and my dynasty team. That's my feelings across the board about that situation. We dove into it a lot, so I don't really need to add more. So hope Matt Ryan doesn't get hurt. If he does, Josh Rosen, it's probably your last shot to prove that you could be anything.
Yeah, even serviceable.
It's probably the best place for that to happen, right? Where there's zero pressure here.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero. You have one of the more tough quarterbacks who hasn't missed games in his career at all, really. So here's a chance to just learn. Show us you can do it. And maybe you'll have to be called on, in a mop-up role type game where they pull Matt, or he gets hurt, or who knows, maybe even lock up a playoff spot early. I mean, who knows? But this is probably his last chance to do something, and it's probably a good situation for him. He has a chance here where he can sort of show management something in practice and in those places where he could work himself into being the heir to Matt Ryan, where there is zero pressure, just to learn the offense and grow there. Because I mean, let's be real, the guy's still ridiculously young. It's not like he's an old dog. He can still settle down and find himself. And we're talking about Sam Darnold, reinventing himself, switching teams. There's no reason Josh Rosen can't turn out to be a success story. Whether or not that's the case, who knows? He has to find it, and it's been lost to this point. And all we can do is wait and see. But it is a good situation for him. I think he has the potential to become something there, and I mean, he can have a Kurt Warner story. You know, Nobody expected anything out of him. They wrote him off early, and he succeeded. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have that kind of story. I mean, I'm not going to draw comparisons and say this is going to go, but I like the history of the game. I watch a lot of the documentaries and stuff that are available through the NFL Network, and you know, Steve Young had an awful start to his NFL career. Just absolutely terrible. I mean, he went 3-13 in Tampa. Before he got
Yeah.
before he got ran off to San Francisco. So I mean, it's not unfathomable that someone young can bounce back and find themselves. Obviously, I'm not comparing the two, but I'm saying there are parallels. It's not impossible. It's happened before, and we'll just have to wait and see if this is you know a Cinderella story, or if this is a what could have been story, because it's gonna
Yeah.
be one of the two.
Yeah. Is he Kurt Warner or is he Jamarcus Russell?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next topic. I don't want to say a little bit more vague, but this is probably just a bit more discussion of this one. Um, Cam Newton is missing practices this week because of a miscommunication, they're calling it, between the team and the league office as far as testing protocols, and that has left a pretty gaping hole that Mac Jones looks to step in. I don't know if either of you watched any New England preseason stuff this year.
Oh,
No.
yeah.
Well, I have, because obviously I have Mac Jones on my dynasty roster, so I wanted to get a look at the guy and see what he was doing, and I've been impressed. He's looked at least as good as Cam Newton has in that offense, and
Well, that's a low bar.
it is a low bar, but he's been playing with the twos and the threes, not the ones. So he's looking good out there with the twos and the threes, and I don't know. I mean, I could see him slipping in, just because of the fact that he's not there. And this is the time where you want your starters to get their reps. You're at that midpoint of camp. You're actually at the back end of camp, really, because there's only one more
Mhm.
game.
Yeah.
So, this is the last chance, that you're going to get to see these guys going. And the last preseason game is typically the warm up game, as it were. You get you get your starters out there. They get more reps. To this point, you've maybe seen a drive or a quarter, or even in some instances a half. But this is the game where the young guys get to go out there and ball out, show their spot, earn their spot on the roster. And I don't know, Mac Jones is he's got that potential there. We don't know if Newton's going to play this week or not. And Max had this week in practice to work exclusively with the ones, and no Cam there to be seen at all. So he's getting all of the coaching. Obviously Newton's virtually at practices, but what? How do you attend a virtual practice really and be part of it? It's not easy. So I don't know, but this has led us to the discussion: is Mac Jones going to be the starter? A lot of people had him penciled in as next year, but
Yeah,
can he make the jump? Can he start week 1?
I think so. I think this is a situation where we knew it was going to happen. Cam did not play particularly well last year. I was surprised that they gave him an extension in the offseason.
Relatively
Signed him.
cheap one though.
Hmm?
Relatively cheap one though.
Well, exactly. It was like, okay, we don't have a quarterback. We're going to draft one, but we're not going to. I mean, New England is not a place where a rookie quarterback is going to start week 1. That's not what Bill Belichick does. He will sit a guy on a bench for 3 years and then maybe start you. So I think it's an issue with Cam. Just yeah, it was a mistake, and he got the COVID testing thing mixed up, and I think he's out the next 5 days or something. And Mac Jones, as Johnny said, Mac Jones has looked pretty good in Cam's place at the moment. So on top of that is another aspect as far as Cam, screwing around with the COVID thing. With the NFL really tightening their rules on players getting COVID, missing time, potentially forfeiting games, I don't think New England is going to tolerate Cam Newton screwing around.
Well, I'll point out, before we go down that rabbit hole, that he didn't screw around. He was actually, team was aware it was actually a doctor's appointment that he was attending
Okay.
off facility. So it wasn't, he didn't go screw around at a club. He didn't go meet some friends.
Okay.
It was an off-site, outside of the, I don't want to say bubble because that's not an accurate phrasing, but outside of the team-controlled facilities that
Right.
took him. I mean, it took him out of the bubble of coverage, and the teams, and the league
Okay.
miscommunicated on. He still tested negative. There's been no positive tests or anything, but they weren't aware that that would still put him back in the 4-day, and it's 4-day bubble, where
Okay.
before he can reassimilate with the team.
Right. Okay. And another aspect, I don't think Cam Newton has publicly stated whether or not he's vaccinated.
I think this
Um,
implies he doesn't, because obviously this,
mhm.
they've said that the vaccine protocols are for vaccinated players are different,
Right.
so there's a bit more leeway, I
Yep.
guess, in that one. So
So an interesting aspect of this is, let's say Cam remains unvaccinated, and we're getting close to game day. Let's say week 3, and he's the starter. He tests positive close to game day. He's not showing up. So they throw out the playbook for Cam Newton, and all of a sudden Mac Jones is the starter. Mac Jones balls out, and Cam Newton rides the bench for the rest of the year. That is, it's a possibility that you don't think of, because you think of, oh, well, Cam Newton's just going to play bad enough that he's going to lose his spot. He's going to lose his spot based on what he does on the field. The rules have changed enough to where what you do off the field, as far as this COVID thing, you could lose your spot and not get it back, especially if you're kind of riding the bubble like Cam is. Cam's a starter right now, but he's not, he's on the hot seat as far as being quarterback 1 in New England. And I think that's something that it's a risk you take by not getting the vaccine based on your job. I think it's a risk.
That's a good point.
I mean, obviously
You
we're
know?
not, we're not going to go into the politics of it, but I think having an actual full FCC approval of it this week, I think kind of has changed the game to a certain degree. Whereas before this you could understand the science argument. Like
Mhm.
it's iffy, it's questionable, it's a band-aid on a bullet wound. Now it's not. It's
Oh, you watched New England's offense last year too, huh?
so it's all we can do is wait and see how this affects them. I mean, there's still lots of time left. We don't know, but I think having him move up and practice with the ones sort of makes him. Is there anything on this topic you wanna?
Yeah. So I'm just the thing is like even with like the indications like Jared brought up great points, like very good points, especially with the COVID thing. If Cam isn't vaccinated, but I don't want to dive too much into that. But those are very good points. Uh, I just don't think like that Bill wants to start a rookie quarterback, and like not even just like off his history of like because he had never has everything. Like he's never started one. He's also had Tom basically forever. He hasn't really had opportunities to start rookie quarterbacks. So my thinking is he is the master of defeating rookie quarterbacks. That is a known thing. I think he is more aware than anybody out there that you can outcoach a rookie. You know what I mean? You can make, you know what I mean? You can get to him that way. So I don't think he wants to do that. Like Cam Newton, I think Cam Newton is going to have to give him all the reasons to take the job away from him before they go with Mack. But Mack is still a threat. That doesn't mean in any way Mack isn't a threat. That doesn't mean Mack won't start. Things can happen. And like the vaccine thing, that is a very good point. But which these are not things you typically I'd be right down on my point. If Jared didn't say like but this is a different year than we've ever been at, so we have to consider those things. But I'm under the impression that they want to run Cam Newton. They plan to run Cam Newton. Cam Newton is, in my opinion, the best option because I'm not a fan of running rookies. I never have been. The only positive, in my opinion, is you have a cheap quarterback position by running a rookie. They have that anyways. Can't like Johnny mentioned earlier. Cam did not sign for a lot, so you don't have any reason, no pressure. There's zero pressure. Bill doesn't feel pressure from fans. That's not real for him. That's for other people. There's no pressure for him to start a rookie quarterback. So unless he genuinely feels that's the right move, which I don't think is right now, it's Cam's job.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking Belichick. You have to go back to 1995 in Cleveland when he started a rookie quarterback of any consistency, and that's nobody cared about Cleveland in 1995 because they were 1 foot out the door to Baltimore at that point.
Was that the Belichick Nick Saban year? No, that was 94.
I don't know.
Yeah, Nick Saban was.
I was too.
I want to say Nick Saban was his defensive coordinator, I believe, in 94. So just a fascinating
when they had the weird run?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That could have been. I don't know specifically, but in 95 you started Kevin Zier for 4 games. I mean, I don't know. It's apparently happened twice in New England since he got there, and that's more of a there's literally nobody else that can throw the ball, so we got to let the rookie do it.
Well, exactly. You force his hand, right?
Yeah.
Rather than it being a conscious decision of this is what we're doing and here's why. It's like, well, damn, we have to do this, so let's just go with it.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of feel will be like if like Cam loses his job this year. It'll be more like, oh, Cam has COVID. It's Mack's job now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing, and then go from there. Or Cam just sucks. I don't think he will, but that's a possibility.
I think Cam is going to improve.
I hope so, because last year isn't good enough.
No.
I'm on his side, but last year is not good enough.
No, he is definitely... I don't know what happened to Cam Newton, but that Super Bowl game broke him.
Yeah.
He's never been the same guy since.
And I think he's... I mean, the injury-prone thing is a thing, but... I mean, that's...
Even when healthy, he hasn't been the same type of player.
Exactly. He was pretty healthy last year, and maybe just the NFL caught up to him. He was this dynamic player, and you do that long enough, there's enough tape on a guy that they know what to expect with Cam Newton, and they know how to beat him.
I think, don't get me wrong, I think there is some regression that's going on for one reason or another, but that wide receiving core in general, was the worst in the NFL.
Oh, there's no question that's not,
The team was, you know, he was two close plays, like very close plays from having a winning record on the season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if he didn't get COVID and deal with that you know what I mean? Who knows what else could happen? Like I don't think Cam Newton as bad as his stats say they were, but in the same thing though, if his stats end up the same as they were, it's not gonna be good enough. You got to figure it out. You only have what you have, and if that means you got to make like cake out of mud kind of thing, like you got to do it. Like
Well, yeah,
it's
look at where they spent their free agent dollars. They spent millions and millions of dollars building up those missing pieces on offense with guys who can catch the ball. And okay, so they fixed that problem. Now the spotlight is directly on Cam Newton. They gave him playmakers.
I find intriguing about sorry, Johnny, go ahead if you want.
I was just going to say that Cam cobbled together, 2,600 passing yards to pylons, basically last season.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
What I find odd, and like there is some sort of regression. How much, that's to be determined. But what I find odd is how so many people have given up on him when, like, everyone was like, "Oh, those kind of quarterbacks," you know what I mean? That's why you don't draft those guys. Right? He can still run. He did it all last year. Like, running isn't the problem with Cam Newton, and that's normally like with RG3. The reason RG3 isn't like a starter is because his knee, and he can't run anymore. People are questioning it. They're saying the regressions in his arm. Like, how? Like, what? Like, that's not because he was a running quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, arm injuries can happen to anybody. Like, maybe it's increased, I guess, because he encourages contact. But if people remember, those injuries came from him getting sacked and smoked, like, behind his line. Like, he wasn't running. He was taking those dirt. Remember, there was that season where everyone was like, "Oh, he's taking all these dirty shots."
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's where he got the arm injury. Like, that wasn't Cam playing reckless. That had nothing to do with the reckless. If that was Tom Brady, you know what I mean? He likely would have got even more hurt because he's not as big of a person as Cam is.
And he would have got more flags for it too.
I didn't want to go down that road, but I was gonna, stay just on the injury thing. Like, I think he gets a harder rep than he deserves. But again, you gotta. Excuses can only go so far because if you don't do it, people don't care. Like,
yeah,
I may be on his side and I'll still be rooting for him whether or not, but like, if he doesn't get it done this year, Cam Newton's probably not a starting quarterback anymore in the NFL. At least not without being like a backup, and then again he's got to wait for someone else to get hurt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's tough. He's always been a rush. I don't want to say rush first, but that's always been the threat. And I mean, last year was a great season. It was his 5th highest career number for rushing yardage, and the most touchdowns he's run for since his rookie season. So, I mean, he's still productive. He's still good.
And I think it was a career high completion percentage, too, I believe. I don't have a way to check at this current moment, but I believe that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have percentage here where I'm looking, but, that sounds about right. I mean, just looking at base numbers, but, it just...
And his deep ball used to be really... He needs a deep option, that's for sure. And they did at least get him that, I believe, Nelson Agholor? That's one of the signings, right? He needs that because when he had Ted Ginn, like, that's a big deal because the one thing about Cam is he brings a safety in the box. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to respect him, like, you know what I mean, that's a problem. So once that safety comes in, if he's got that speedster over top, like, you'll give it to him. And Cam, if people have watched Cam, I'm sure lots of people have watched Cam, when he does this thing where he, like, snaps the ball, and then he goes to move forward like he's going to run, and he stops. And he plants his feet like he's playing quarterback again, and then he bombs it deep. And, like, that when he has a speedster is a big deal because he catches that one safety up there, and he gets him to hesitate and insert Ted Ginn and hopefully Nelson Agholor this year. That guy's gone. He didn't have that last year. Jacoby Myers, N'Keal Harry, these guys, they can't get past it. No, not at all. Like, Jacoby's a decent wide receiver, but they ain't getting over the top. Like, Nelson Agholor, I bet you we're going to see some stuff that they did not do last year. And to add on to that, not only is Cam going to add to the box, like what Cam does, those 2 tight end additions sitting in the middle, the only way to take those away on the mismatches is to have your safety coming on, like a cover 1 robber, for example, things like that. You know what I mean? And as soon as you do that, you pull the safety from the wrong side and Nelson's on that side. Goodbye. Like these things are going to happen. And if you don't do that, expect a lot of targets to Hunter Henry and why can I not think of the name of the other one they got?
Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith from the Titans. Good luck. Good luck. I don't expect them to I don't think it's a high powered offense, but I think it'll be a very efficient offense. That's what I think. And I think Cam will get some respect as long as some outside contingencies, don't alter the path.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to, we'll just have to wait and see. I don't want to say that was a rabbit hole, but, well, it was a little one. All right, let's move on to the next topic that has come up this week. And I don't think we really need to spend too much time on this because the laughter will be all there. But have you ever had buyer's remorse?
Yep.
How about seller's remorse? Because there's definitely a very strong instance of seller's remorse in the NFL right now. And that is good old Johnny Gruden in Las Vegas having some very serious seller's remorse for forcing Khalil Mack out the door. They reached out to the Bears in the offseason to acquire about his availability. I can't not laugh at this.
I don't want to. I don't want to rip on. I have lots of things I've said about Mayock and what's happened here. I don't understand how they haven't been under fire more than they have. And I love that guy before he got his job, but we mentioned it last week, I believe, when Jared told us the nice news that Clelin Ferrell is number 2 on the depth chart at his position. The guy that was supposed to replace said Khalil Mack. And then to follow that up with the next corresponding week, to hear the news that they're trying to get Khalil back. I mean, I feel like that should be bigger news than just us laughing at it. It's fine, let's laugh at it. It's a funny thing too. But dude, come on. If there's not a better example that you're not doing your job right, is that not it? Is not it's not it's funny for us, but as an Oakland Raiders fan, that can't be funny. That has to be infuriating, to see that. Remember who went after the next pick? Please look it up to double check for me if someone can. But I believe Devin Bush was the next pick after Clelin Ferrell. This guy is being dubbed by some as the next best linebacker over the next decade. That is what some people are calling this guy, and I believe that is who went after. I could be wrong. I didn't double check on that before I came in and said it, but I'm fairly certain that's how that went.
Devin White went to the Bucs.
Devin White, sorry, that's what I meant. Devin White, the Bucs. I meant not the Bush, not for the Steelers. Devin White. My apologies.
Either way,
Devin Bush went 10th, and Ed Oliver went to the Bills.
Really good, but Devin White's the one who killed it in the Super Bowl. That all these guys you decided, and he was the obvious pick. Everyone said, Devin White will be a top 5 pick, and that's when linebackers don't really go. You know what I mean? There's reasons for that. And Mayock's nope, getting Clelin Ferrell. And then somehow he got away with that. Somehow he's not, why would you go after Khalil Mack? And why would you even think about going after Khalil Mack and let this news arise so people were talking about your major mistake again?
Especially
you were kind of
after,
getting away with it.
Yeah, especially after the way they talked about Mack on the way out the door.
Right?
They didn't have nice things to say about Mack on the way out.
They have gotten off so easy, and somehow, it's like that kid, you know what I mean, that has to just keep testing it, he got away with something, and then he's just gotta rub it in a bit, and that's when what are you doing? It makes no sense. It's I don't know. It's embarrassing as an organization for that news to come out. It really is.
Yeah.
But somehow, I bet you no one talks about it in 3 weeks, and I don't know.
I mean, I think it'll
Guys
still
in
be
other
a.
positions are under fire.
I think it's still going to be a butt of a joke. You know, somebody probably dug up all the headlines of all of the things they said about Mack when they traded him, and be like, "Wow, for somebody who's all of these things, you want him back?" You know, and shoving it in their face. And I mean, it makes sense that they're kind of getting a grace period. You know, being that they moved Mack out when they were still in Oakland, and now they're moving into a new fan base in Vegas where they're you know the only game in town, really. They don't have any history. They can build it up however they want, and the fans aren't old enough to look at it and be like, "What the are you doing?" Like Oakland fans have been around long enough. They've seen enough defensive players to be like, "This dude is good. What are you doing?" But that's a. We'll laugh at the Raiders again, I'm sure. Whether it's at Gruden.
We're not done. We're not done laughing at the Raiders.
Oh, Jared
Okay.
got some stuff for us.
Oh boy.
All right.
Tell us some names. Tell us some more names, my friend.
So I got something better.
Something better?
Okay.
3 years ago, John Gruden signed a 10-year, $100 million contract.
Yes.
For his return from working from TV, coming back to coaching. He was quoted as saying, "If I can't get it done, I'm not going to take their money." Why is he still taking their money? Like, you know. Or here's another quote. "I'm not overpaid. Tom Cruise is overpaid." Tom Cruise gets the job done.
Right?
Tom Cruise is worth what he's being paid to act in those movies. Because those movies have results. Exactly.
Box office hits.
I'd also have to point out, dude, how old are you that Tom Cruise is your go-to for Hollywood right now?
Exactly, right? Days of Thunder, this is not.
Here's the thing. Maybe one of them gets off, but one has to get the blame. Somebody's fucking up. Sorry for swearing, boys. But, somebody is. Either it's Mayock or it's Gruden. Gruden's not coaching the best out of these guys, or Mayock's just, missing it. One of those two things are occurring, and somebody's got to get some backlash here. Because, there's too many good coaches in this league that, you know what I mean, get ridiculed and fired while having, 10-win seasons. You know what I mean? 11-win seasons. Well, you're good. You're just not the guy that get us over the edge.
It's like...
And then we have this happening? What is going on? I don't know.
It's like Davis in ownership is, trying to amend the mistakes of his father. I got rid of Gruden at the top of his game when he went and beat us in a Super Bowl the next year, and he was still really good for another few years anyway, and now we're just gonna keep him regardless because we did him dirty once. I mean I don't know. I mean you can say the coach can only coach what the GM puts on the field, and that's true. But let's be real, there's no universe where John Gruden isn't sitting in the office with Mike Mayock talking about these guys. There's no way John Gruden doesn't, have that level of team control to where, yes, he's not the GM, but he pretty much is. I mean, he kind of handpicked Mayock to be the GM, right?
Yeah, I mean, with Mark Davis, would you trust a guy who gets a haircut by putting a bowl on his head? No,
isn't
no.
Isn't that what Mike Davis does?
Exactly.
And Gruden does. So why would he not trust him?
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing must work.
Do you think they cut each other's hair?
Something in the water.
It's got to be a hot seat somewhere in Las Vegas this year. I mean, and it's got to be enough, and it's got to be enough this year.
The sad part is though, that hot seat is Derek Carr's, not either of theirs.
What are they going to? What are they just going to draft another quarterback?
Why not?
He's been there 10 years almost. Feels like.
Why not?
And what are they going to do? I don't know. And then what? Trade away Darren Waller because he's getting too old? They got rid of Amari Cooper. They got rid of Mack. I don't even what is their goal? They just let guys show up, trade them away.
You're
Show
too
up,
good. We
trade them
can't
away.
keep you.
Exactly. Waller's too good. They're going to trade him in the offseason, like
It's going to help our team because we can get all of these assets that we're going to squander, but we
they're going
can
to get
get
they're going to
them.
get some first round picks for him that they can spend
Max Crosby's
wisely.
going to get 17 sacks this year, and then they're going to ship him out.
It's like the
Yeah.
opposite of a rebuild. Like, we talk about fantasy football, and
Oh,
we've seen those
speaking
GMs
of-
who just pile up the picks and be like, I'm gonna make all the picks, and my team's gonna get better this way, and it might work. Or you can accumulate all those picks and then get rid of them for things that actually help your team, like I did. Not that I'm
Well, that's
spouting
what New England
success,
does.
but it's like you've got to do something with these assets you get, and you haven't. You got kind of a king's ransom for Matt. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say a king's ransom because they actually kind of gave him away for peanuts, really. They gotta. Have they actually really broken the bank on any of these great players they've traded?
No, they got a
No.
first for Amari. I think two firsts. I mean, for Mack. Then they traded away 3 of their starting O linemen that were all good O linemen this offseason. Got like fifths and stuff for them. I think they got a third for the left tackle or whatever that New England traded for. I don't even know if it was that good. Like, I have no idea what their game plan is, but I have Josh Jacobs, so I hope something happens.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, they're trading away for these picks, which is fantastic if you know what you're doing with them. And Las Vegas has proven time and time again they are not a team that can be trusted with draft picks.
Which is
Yeah,
ridiculous considering the GM is supposed to be a draft guru, right?
They they drafted Henry Ruggs over Judy, Lamb, Justin Jefferson.
And Ruggs is fine. I mean, he's not a bad player. I think he's going to improve this year. But
Jefferson got 1,400 yards.
exactly, right? The bar
Lamb was
is so
killing it.
much higher that, he's good isn't good enough when compared to other guys that were
The problem
picked
was they
after
took him. They took him because he had the legs, right?
Yeah.
He could run. He had the better 40
They-
time, and all those
As I was
other
saying,
all those other things that they're not utilizing at all. Like they don't utilize the long ball, so why draft the speedy guy?
because Oakland's notorious for drafting those guys, just like Darius Hayward Bay. There's a long list of speedsters that they just draft.
No,
I just
absolutely. But I mean, the problem
love
is
it.
that unlike when they started drafting those guys in like the 70s, when they actually did something with them, they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's the difference, right? Like you draft the speedy guy, great. If you have an offense that utilizes them, if you've got the quarterback that's making these 30, 40, like Patrick Mahomes with a speedster, makes perfect sense because he can put the ball 40 yards, 50 yards out, and Tyreek Hill can run under it, and you've got touchdowns galore. That's why that combo works. Like, and there's so many other instances where, like, I mean, look at John Ross. He's the guy we were talking about last week as far as, being the biggest bust of all time. The dude set the... Whoa, what happened to Zach? I'm doubled. Why am I doubled?
Oh, you're doubled because I think he went to
I can-
mute himself and then
I can
accidentally
see
clicked
that
the wrong
Zach
button.
accidentally sort of fluffed and made himself disappear, and
He's back, or he's coming back. He will be here momentarily.
it's not awkward. Like, we're seeing double. Like, can I do like the mime thing? Like, whoa.
Great. Zach leaves, and now Johnny's acting like a friggin' mime. Can you not leave again, please?
I'm sorry. I need a desktop at some point. Technical difficulties here and there.
Laptop just as good. Just something that's not a phone. Uh, but no, I mean, like, it's just there's so many instances where drafting the speedster works because you get the ball to them. And I right as you kind of disappeared there, I made the point. John Ross is a prime example of that. Dude set the record for the 40, and they did nothing with him because the quarterback couldn't throw the ball past 20 yards with any, success. So,
And I think it also says something like speed isn't everything. Like, and it doesn't mean ignore it either. Like, don't pull like, oh, DK Metcalf's just fast, so we're not going to draft him either. DK Metcalf was 6'4", 230 pounds, and fast. You know what I mean? Henry Ruggs 5'11". John Ross like 5'10". John Ross like 160 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, there's more than just being fast. And I know people will point out Tyreek Hill. Again, that dude isn't just fast. That is like the most agile person in the league. Like the
He's
way
also got
he
a
moves,
quarterback who can just chuck the ball downfield and let him
that
run
is
under him.
also true. That is very much a good point. If he played for the Saints last year or the last few years and Drew Brees was this guy, don't get me wrong, he would still get some stats, but he wouldn't be utilized the same way in which they use him in Kansas City and with Patrick Mahomes.
It doesn't matter how fast you are if you can't get the separation before you get the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what makes the speed guys great. Like Tyreek Hill's probably still got 2 to 3 yards on a cushion when he gets the ball in his hands on those big, plays where he throws up the deuces. Or it's a slant where he, gets it and he's already going at max speed on a slant and just cuts up field. Like, it's not he's not working out of the slot and playing tight coverage across the middle and getting it and using those legs. That's not how it works. You need to be an outside burner to use those legs effectively, and you can't be 5'11". You can't. Like, it just, not anymore. There was a time when that would have worked and been great because the defensive backs were that size, but now it's almost like a ride at the fair. This tall to enter. And there's still places for those smaller guys. I mean, let's be honest, they make phenomenal punt returners and kick returners, and that's a category that doesn't get love like it should.
You're dissing Rondell Moore, Jared. Do you hear all this?
And the Arena Football League still exists too.
He's saying Rondell Moore won't be good. You hear this, Jared?
Oh, I know.
Punt returner. You got yourself a punt returner, man.
Yeah. I don't say that with derision though. Like, I mean, you look at some punt returners, and there's some phenomenal ones. Like Darren Sproles is amazing, and the punt returner doesn't get enough love.
Jared used the first round pick on Rondell Moore, though. He wants more than a punt returner.
I do.
I mean, let's be real though. I drafted Elijah Moore. He's 5'9". So
we might have like on the years though.
I'm just saying that they have to work to have success at that. Like just because you're 5'9" and can run a fast 40 doesn't mean you've got the skills. You need something else to separate you. From those other guys. And that's not something like people draft them thinking on their 40 time. Like, great, you ran a 40 time. This ain't track.
Yeah.
Like, that worked for Dallas in the 60s and 70s. Draft the track star and teach them to catch the ball. That don't work today.
Oh, it'll work in Dallas. Just you wait and see.
I don't think it will. All right, unless anybody has anything else to add here, we'll move on to our next topic.
I think we've buried Las Vegas enough for this episode. Actually, no, we haven't. There's more coming.
How many topics do we have on this this segment?
There's only like 4 more, kind of.
I was gonna say it was a big news day, so I figured
it's definitely a lot. Like, there's a lot of topics that just kind of get rolled up into one. They're players that got put on IR.
Let's get those guys.
Well, they're just guys you kind of name and move on in like 30 seconds. But we're going to talk about this guy because he's had a very interesting week, and that's Luke Wilson. Not a name you'd expect us to talk about, although 3 Canadian guys talking about football probably should. That he is one of the better players to come out of Canada for a long time.
Sad.
Like now we're getting up there. There's a lot more, Canadians making the jump, but for a long time they didn't. But that's like most. It's like most sports. I was gonna go for Dr. Tardif as my guy. Luke Wilson had a very interesting week this week. We'll run it through day by day. Monday, he works out for the Seahawks. Good stuff. He's been there enough. He knows the offense. They just got to make sure he can still go. Tuesday, he gets signed by the Seahawks. They have to make some roster adjustments, find an open spot on the roster, and they bring back good old Luke Wilson. They plug him into the offense seemingly every year at some point, so it makes sense to bring him in early. Wednesday morning, Luke Wilson gets cut. Now, that happens in training camp. You come in, you readjust your roster situations, and you get cut. Wednesday afternoon, Luke Wilson retires.
Just
Okay, so to be fair, he did cite a heart issue as the reason for the retirement, and likely the reason, just a health issue for him being released. Um, it's sad because Seattle was his team. He was there for a couple of years, went to the Super Bowl twice with them, and it sucks that he had to retire. I mean, the situation that Johnny described is, you're not going to get that 9 times out of 10 where you visit, get signed, get cut, and retire all in a matter of what, 48 hours. So it's strange, but he had a pretty good career, and I mean, other than the time he spent in Detroit, but nobody likes going to Detroit anyways. Um, he was a decent player. 102 games, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. He was an okay tight end. Not great, but not bad. Um, it sucks that he had to retire due to a health issue and not on his own terms. But the Seattle,
that was in the off season though. That wasn't a new thing. He
yeah,
dealt with it. So
yeah. So I mean, it's fine. Seattle is going to be okay. Their tight end room is okay. And plus, I mean, I personally really liked him in Legally Blonde, so it was okay.
wow.
You knew something was coming.
Oh, I responded and it went over your head.
Oh no.
Yeah, I gave you the Owen Wilson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's his gimmick. And you
Luke's,
missed
Luke's,
it.
Luke's better anyways.
Boom!
Uh-huh.
Hit you with one of your own jokes and you didn't even notice it, and poor Zach's sitting there just like,
Yeah, well,
boy.
Zach's favorite football player, 0-16, because it's going to be the Broncos' record this year.
Yikes. Anything you want to say on Luke Wilson, the football player?
is that me you're asking?
Yes, Jared had his moment in the sun.
Luke Wilson. Um, average. Like Jared said, he was an on. I don't even think he started most of the time. It's very unfortunate the way he's going out. Um, doesn't really affect me fantasy wise or anybody. Uh, it so all this is honestly I found this out very recently as you heard the news like you told us just before this, so
Yeah.
I didn't even know he tried out even though so this is all quick to process. It's unique, very unique, very unfortunate. But well, the league will go on, and that's
Yeah.
basically all I got to add. There's not really much. He wasn't like I was never a big fan, and I'm not gonna pretend like I watched a lot of his game film.
It sucks, too, because he had a really good fashion sense, Like,
We are on Spotify and stuff, Jer.
oh, yeah. Okay, well, I shared a picture of Luke Wilson, the actor, wearing a very nice hat. Check us out on YouTube.
I like to me it doesn't really bug me. Like I think most of the reason we're talking about him is because he's a good Canadian guy, and there aren't a whole lot of Canadian success stories in the NFL.
Exactly.
Thankfully that
But,
number is growing on a fairly consistent basis. Obviously the big one, Chase Claypool, at this point. Good Canadian boy. Dr. Laurent Duvernay Tardif, also good Canadian boy. So the numbers are growing, and obviously, this is a podcast hosted by 3 Canadians talking about American football. So, kind of had to
well,
talk
I
about
mean,
it.
have you seen the CFL lately?
No.
Well, there you go.
I watch one CFL game per year. That's the Grey Cup. Because
I usually watch their Week 7 Calgary at Edmonton game. It's phenomenal.
I watch the Grey Cup because it's an excuse to get wings and ribs and, have the big game experience in November.
Yeah, and then you have to listen to the Tragically Hip at halftime. No, thank you.
It could be worse.
Oh yeah, it could be Shania Twain.
I think that's better, not worse.
That's true. It's considerably better,
Could be
actually.
a tragically hip hologram.
And besides which, it's the Tragically Hip. That's a hockey band. I don't think they ever played at the Grey Cup.
Yeah, same with the Stompin' Tommy.
But I digress. To me, he's always the guy. I remember him more for his appearances on Tim and Sid than for his play on the football field, to be honest. And those were good. He played FIFA with Tim a lot, or with Sid a lot on the show. So I mean, those were fun more than his football experiences because that guy scored a 2-point conversion that helped the Seahawks pull away from the Packers one year. But I
That was a
digress.
great game.
You great game, my ass. Um, I digress. Move on to our next topic. Carson Wentz already back in practice.
That's surprising. Very much surprising. Good and bad for the Colts. Good because you're gonna get him back. Bad because you're probably gonna pay for a first to have an injured Carson Wentz playing for you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say bad because you get him back too.
I didn't. Golly, why you gotta do him dirty like that? Dang man, no. Like I was saying, like you might be paying for a first for a guy you're not gonna get 100% healthy, which is unfortunate. I think you don't really. If you were to trade a first for a guy, like say you were planning to trade a first for a guy, you would want to see the healthy product before you offered the first. So it still sucks that you're going to be likely giving it up. Where I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird world. Like I said, it's like it's happy and not happy because like you would rather in a perfect situation he misses 6 weeks, comes back perfectly healthy and kills it. You know what I mean? Then they keep their second. I don't know. There's I don't know. I guess I'm sure coach and management are more happy than anything because they just want the best quarterback they can on the field. But it's also surprising. I thought he would be missing a few weeks.
It also bodes well for the franchise. Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly both also return to practice this week.
That
Two
is
starters, two big starters
that
on
is
the O
big.
line. So
That's
you get your
big.
quarterback back. You get your quarterback back, and two of your O line starters who are Pro Bowl caliber players. So that's equally as huge, I think.
Yeah, if we
Um,
can get everybody healthy week one, I like that offense a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of amazing the time frame for Carson Wentz because he had foot surgery 3 weeks ago and he was expected to be out 5 to 12 weeks, and he's
yep.
back looking really good in practice. This week.
Same month. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like 3 weeks later, he's back in
Same.
training camp. Not full participant, but enough to where there's talk that he's starting week one. Which, if you were to have said that any time in the past 3 weeks, that's crazy.
I mean, it fits the timetable. I mean, when they announced the 5 to 12 week timetable, I think myself and most everyone assumed that's before you can even start practice again.
Yeah,
Like
right.
that's the assumption. When you say somebody's out for 5 to 12 weeks, that's it. You're not playing football for 5 to 12 weeks.
Yeah. Now,
That includes practice. And obviously, here we are now, both him and Nelson, who both had foot surgery at the beginning of the month. Both of them are back in camp 3 weeks later, and looking like week one is a possibility. And obviously, if you're Frank Reich, if you're that franchise, you want as many of your offensive starters as possible for week one to have the full run. You don't want to throw away a few weeks worth of games because your starters aren't there when there's the possibility of having them all good to go week one, which is obviously what you want every year. So it certainly
yeah,
bodes well for them. It's a plus because that team does have the potential. It's one that gets slept on a lot because of the history and the way things have went for them. They've been kind of the sad sack franchise for a few years. Luck getting hurt, Luck retiring, and not exactly quarterback success since then. I mean, they keep bringing in guys that look like they could be something, and they're not.
Well,
And
they
now,
better hope Carson Wentz is healthy because, I mean, he's missed time due to injury in 3 of his last 5 seasons. And if you look at that quarterback depth chart, I mean, Jacob Eason, eh, not so much. And they got the 2021 sixth round pick, Sam Ellinger. He looks better than Eason. I mean, if they needed to start him, they would start him if Wentz can't go. But ideally, Wentz is 95% week one and can go through and play the season. And I think the Colts would be better off with Wentz playing a full season.
oh,
And
absolutely.
and you don't risk him being injured again.
Mm.
Because like I said, 3 out of 5 seasons he's been injured, so he's a little brittle. Based on his history, he's not the most healthy player, and him being injured in training camp was like this big joke of like, oh well, we should have saw that coming. Wentz gets hurt, of course. Zach probably bet money on it, and I think he's the key to this offense because he's got so many weapons around him right now that are proven. And if he can remain healthy, everything else around him is going to work to make him a better player. I think we're going to see a return to that Carson Wentz that got Philadelphia to the playoffs a couple of years ago. And if we get that Carson Wentz, then, Colts are not only a playoff team, but they could go pretty far in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. All right. Next up, we've got a couple of trades today, actually, as we're recording this. I mean, I guess technically at this point it'd be yesterday because we're after midnight on recording date, but it was, today when we started. Of course, those happened on the Wednesday the 25th, depending, of course, on when you're watching or listening to this. We record Wednesday nights, people. So, obviously, these things happen today. They're still fresh. Sony Michel, when it was traded to the Rams this morning, that news broke fairly early this morning. I think around 8 a.m. ish, 7:30, 8 o'clock this morning, for conditional draft picks, which we have since learned that they have worked that out. It's a 2022 sixth round pick and a 2023 fourth round pick coming from Los Angeles to New England. What do you think about this trade?
So Bill Belichick got up this morning, had his coffee, went and took a dump, and sent Sony Michel to the Rams. That's his morning. I mean, I think it's a casualty of Damian Harris finally living up to the expectations that everyone has for him. And Ramondre Stevenson showing up in preseason so far. So I think they could afford to get rid of him and get something in return to a team that desperately needs him. See, that's the key. They're not just getting rid of him to, Carolina to be a backup. No, they're sending Sony to be the RB1 for the Rams because they need it because Cam Akers went down, and then on Monday, Darrell Henderson sprained his thumb. And it was supposed to be Darrell Henderson's offense going forward. And we know he can't stay healthy. So there were talks, even the second Cam Akers got hurt, of, okay, what are they going to do? Are they going to start with Henderson? Are they going to look for a veteran backup to bring in, And I think Sony Michel is going to be the guy for the Rams for 2021. And it's a good pickup.
I agree with Jer. Like, basically everything he said across the board. I'd be just lying if I thought I had more to add, to be honest. He kind of hit it all right on the head.
Yeah, I mean, we've on this show discussed, the Rams and their quarterback, their running back situation, with their starter getting hurt, and now here we are, just a couple weeks later, and they're answering the question, which pretty much coincides with what we suggested. As they got deeper in camp, they'd make a move and bring somebody in to boost up the room, and that's what they've done. And Sony Michel is that guy, and I think he's a good complement to Daryl Henderson. That helps that room a lot. So we'll see, how exactly it breaks down for them in starts and snaps and who plays what and when. And it's a good
And
pickup for both sides, I think.
yeah, and the Rams kind of got a steal on that because they have a good, reliable starting, relatively reliable. Michel's had some injury issues, but relatively reliable starting option for running back. And what did they give up? A 2022 sixth round and a 2023 fourth round. So that's peanuts for them to have a reliable starting running back to start the season. They don't have to worry about Henderson being healthy. Akers is gone. So it works out. And, New England, they're a weird team with draft picks. They don't like drafting early players. They get rid of firsts all the time for proven players. So they're fine with getting a couple late round draft picks for a guy who was not at the top of their depth chart anymore. So you're right. Both teams got what they wanted. They're both happy with the trade. And, the Rams are a more complete team now than they were yesterday. Win-win.
I don't really think there's anything more to add to that one. One other trade, this one broke just a bit before we actually started tonight. This was a late night trade. Denzell, Perryman, and a 7th round pick have been packaged up from Carolina to go to Vegas to join the Raiders for a 6th round pick.
Good depth linebacker added, I think, but Vegas has some bigger things to worry about, I think, and we got onto that earlier. But yeah, it's not a bad trade. Very cheap, not really much risk to it. I have no problem with it.
Remember how I said I wasn't done on the Raiders? Yeah. All right.
Jared's got some numbers.
So Perryman signed with the Panthers in March, and in 5 months finds himself on a different team. Now, that's not necessarily to say he was bad enough to get traded. It's an injury issue. He injured his hip in training camp, and then he was held out the past 2 days because a teammate stepped on him in practice. Now, the caveat in this trade is it's pending a physical. I don't know if Perryman can pass the physical based on his injury woes the past couple weeks. If the trade does go through, then it shows what we already know, that the Raiders are desperate for help on the defensive side of the ball. So it makes sense from their perspective to pick up an injury-prone linebacker, because that's what we expect from the Raiders, right? Hey, this guy can't stay healthy. He's got a bad hip. Come on over. We need you desperately because our defense sucks.
That they did that. I didn't know that. That's a nice catch, Jared.
And we can't get Khalil Mack, so let's go get Denzell Perryman at 11 at night and hope he can pass a physical.
They also
the Raiders suck.
Just to prove their desperate need of linebackers, they also worked out Patrick Onwathar. Put that one on the list of names that nobody in football can pronounce properly except the player and their mother.
Yep.
They worked him out today as well. Yeah, hasn't played in a while. Last year he spent the year on the IR. Or most of the season on the IR. So we'll just have to wait and see, what exactly happens here. If the physical is passed. If not, obviously they will look to fill that hole through other means, I guess. All right, this next topic is one that, of course, if you've been around us a lot, we've discussed this ad nauseum, both on this show and, of course, in the depths of disparity that is our league football chat. News came out today. Denver has their Week 1 starter, and it's not Drew Lock, it's Teddy Two Gloves. Zach, this is your team. The floor is yours. Teddy Two Gloves starting Week 1. What have you got? What do you got to say about that?
Not gonna pretend I'm surprised. Well, I'm a little, because I thought Locke might have done enough to hold on to it, but it's not overly shocking. both have played great in camp. Both have played great in preseason. I guess this would be the best way for me to have Teddy be the starting quarterback, is that he didn't just get it by default because Locke sucked. He actually had to earn it and play good football. You know what I mean? That's always a better way to go in. Uh, I genuinely think that we have an easy schedule to start the first 3 weeks of the year, and then after that it gets significantly harder for the next like 5-6 weeks. Teddy Bridgewater better go 2-3, or have very good stats while going 1-2 or less, or we'll be seeing Locke on the field. That's I'm kind of hoping Jared's got some shocking stats or something for me here that I'm not haven't been expecting. So kind of want to hear what he has to say.
I hate to let you down, but I didn't actually research this one.
Dang.
I know, but I think we saw the writing on the wall with this one a little bit, because you bring in Teddy Bridgewater to challenge for the starting job. You don't bring him in to strictly be a backup because they've got the starter set up. He's set in stone. We're not moving him. Locke did not impress last year for a variety of reasons. Some his fault, some not his fault. And I think Teddy played good enough in the preseason and just through training camp that they're going to give him a shot, because I think they know what they have with Drew Lock. And, it's not what they want to go with at the moment. Is Teddy going to be, starter week 5 like Zach says he might not be? I don't think. Teddy's good, and I don't think he's been given a fair opportunity. And he's on a good team now. That offense is good if it can stay healthy. So I think that's something to be excited about if you're a Denver fan. Like I said, we've seen the Drew Lock show. We know what he can do, what he can't do. And as far as this season, that's not what they went with. And it's entirely understandable. And I think I'm excited to see Teddy kind of run the offense and see what he can do, because he didn't get a fair shake. Like, the problem with Teddy is I think you kind of want that comeback story that we didn't really get, because he played on terrible teams since he came back, because he wasn't able to show his true potential. And I think this is his shot. He's got weapons around him. The defense is relatively good. They've got pieces in place. And I think this is probably the best well-rounded team around Teddy for him to really show his stuff going forward. And we'll see what happens. I think they're in a tough division. So, I mean, they got to beat some good teams this year. Is Teddy the guy to do it? I don't know. But I'm excited to see what they can do.
I mean, Teddy certainly has the history. He has the performances in his past to back up his resume. Locke has stumbled. Like, he hasn't stolen the show. He's been serviceable. Serviceable doesn't win you games. That's not what you need as your starting quarterback, and that's just what he's been. That division has riled up in intensity a great deal, since Denver was, kind of getting by with end career Peyton. You can't just get by in that division anymore. You have to actively be good and actively improve if you have any hope to beat the juggernaut that has become Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Drew Lock can't beat them. Like, he can't. He's not the guy that you're going to put up against Pat Mahomes and say, okay, you need to take down this giant. And, obviously I'm not skill comparing, because that's, Pat Mahomes has the potential to be the GOAT. And obviously Drew Lock was never going to be that guy. Teddy Bridgewater was never going to be that guy. But Teddy Bridgewater was a Pro Bowl quarterback. And a Pro Bowl quarterback can get you those things. He has those intangibles to be that guy, to lead a team that's not that great, to lead a team that has its faults. I mean, he led Minnesota to some good seasons. And that's a tough thing to do. Minnesota is a black hole of everything, really. I mean, and he had some good years in Minnesota before the injury, and he was serviceable. I don't want to say serviceable because I've already used that sort of as a more negative term, but he was good when he came back and moved on from Minnesota after he'd lost the job there, and he was good in relief in New Orleans. He's been good in relief where he's been, and this is his chance to sort of be the bridge. He's not the guy long term. I think him getting the job just proves that Denver is now in bridge mode. Which sounds
Definitely,
weird
literally.
when we're talking Teddy Bridgewater. It's weird to say they're in bridge mode, but they are.
He is the bridge over their troubled water.
Oh God, that might be the name of this show. I don't know yet.
Yes.
But I digress on that point. Just moving Locke out of the starting position proves that Elway and management and everybody has decided that he's not the guy. There's I don't want to say no hope, but yeah, they're looking at quarterbacks in next year's draft at this point. And they're making plans for next season. That's not Drew Lock starting. That's not Teddy Bridgewater starting because he is, he's a next man up quarterback. He has the potential to be the next Ryan Fitzgerald. Ryan Fitzgerald? No, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
We're recording after 1 a.m., so I'll give you that one.
They both have Fitz at the front of their name.
I love that Fitzsimmons guy.
Yeah, he has a chance to be like Fitzmagic and be that sort of bridge starter, to get you from the last guy to the next guy that Fitzpatrick has been basically everywhere he's played, pretty much. He is an extremely intelligent individual, and I believe Teddy has also scored very highly on the tests coming out of college, and is a higher intelligence guy who has that ability to get the team from the last guy to the next guy in an okay fashion. He's going to improve your players. Having him throwing the ball is going to improve Judy. It's going to make Sutton look better. It's going to make the guys around them look better and improve them because they are playing with a better caliber of player. And Locke has just proven that he's not that guy. You when you come into camp and lose your job to a guy whose sole purpose is to be the backup quarterback type guy, he's not. You don't bring him in to start. You don't bring him in to be your day one starter. You bring him in to motivate the guy you've got and prove what they are. And much like Ryan Fitzpatrick has done in so many places, he took the job. He's not going to hold the job long term. You may see Teddy start for 2 seasons while they draft their next man, this year, and have him teach them the ropes, just like Fitzpatrick did in Miami, and will probably do in Washington, and I could keep going backwards on his list of places where he's done that, Buffalo, and so many other places where he's been sort of that bridge between the last guy to the next guy. That's what Teddy Bridgewater is, and that's what you signed him to be. And it doesn't hurt you. It only helps you because now you know. Now you know. There's no question mark hanging over the quarterback room that there was for so long that you don't have that anymore. You know that Drew Lock's not the guy, and quite frankly, that makes me very happy seeing as how I traded him to you 3 months ago.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if they get a couple winning seasons out of Teddy Bridgewater in this fashion, that's a huge win. Because he's, like Johnny said, he's not the guy, he's just the next guy. And they're building to the future. I mean, it's not a full rebuild because they've got a pretty good offense. But I think they know that if they make the playoffs this year, that's shooting far beyond expectations this year. If they can have a winning season this year, that's a plus right now. Because they've been struggling for quite a few years now. And they haven't, if they've tried drafting the answer, they've tried trading for the answer. And is Teddy the answer long term? Probably not. But for the 2021 season, is he the answer? I think so. I think he's good enough to get them where they need to be right now. Which
he's good enough to make them a wild card team with the team around him.
Exactly.
Are they going to win the division? No. because there's a guy named Pat and
Well,
Amy.
yeah, and like you said, we've seen how good the wide receivers are in Denver with Drew Lock throwing to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Drew Lock is not a good quarterback, that's going to lower their ability as well as their value. If you put a better quarterback in that offense, how good are these wide receivers going to be? What's this offense going to look like this year with Teddy throwing to them, who's got years of experience and relatively good years of experience, throwing to guys who haven't had a reliable quarterback throwing to them in this offense? Does the whole team get better? Probably. Wild card? Maybe. I think a winning season is probably the benchmark right now, and if they get past that, then the sky's not the limit, but things are looking up in Denver. And Elway's safe for another year.
The team has a strong chance to be playing meaningful football games in December, and that's something
Yep.
they haven't had in a long time. So that's I think the bar. Can he get them to the playoffs? I don't know. Maybe. He's good. They're in a tough division. They're I don't want to say in a tough conference, but it is a tougher conference. I don't know the schedule offhand. Which divisions are they cycling through this year?
Right.
I can't remember, but we don't have the easiest schedule, that's for sure. It's kind of rough. It's like a mid pack, like upper mid pack schedule.
So I mean, it is what it is. I don't know the schedule they have this year. I mean, obviously we'll see that as we go, but depending on which division they're cycling through crosswise, it might be easier, it might be harder. We'll just have to wait and see. And I think Teddy is a quarterback who can have them playing meaningful games in December, which is still a huge plus. Denver is I don't want to say a forgiving market, but it is sort of forgiving. They've dealt with blah for so long, like historically. Their peaks have been intense, but their valleys have been long and painful. And they almost squandered a Hall of Fame quarterback in John Elway. Almost. Obviously, they won at the end, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah. All right, I think that's enough. Teddy Two Gloves and the Denver quarterback room, and we're
Okay,
gonna.
so I just went through their schedule this year. I've got them winning 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got them winning 9 games.
Which divisions are they cycling through?
That's solid.
They're cycling through the AFC East and the NFC East. Oh no! Wait.
9 games is solid, right?
Wait,
yeah, that's winning.
No, the Jets are the weird team. The Jets are the 17th team this year, I think.
The Jets are the seed team.
Yeah, that's what threw me off. Okay, so they are playing the AFC North and the NFC East.
Okay, so that's actually not bad. You're grinding through a tough AFC division, but let's be honest, the
NFC East is very beatable this year.
The NFC East is probably the worst division in football right now.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a much more manageable schedule than if you were, say, cycling through the NFC West and, well, the AFC West, I guess. Well, they're in the AFC West, aren't they? The AFC South? North, East, I don't know. I can't keep track of them all, but whatever. It's a much more manageable schedule than if they were cycling through the NFC South or something, or West. They got the good NFC division to be cycling through. All right, let's move on to the last topic here inside the huddle, and we're gonna sort of wrap these guys up. These are just name players of consequence that I ran through who have been placed on IR in the last week. Now, again, this IR is different than normal weeks where, in traditional years, you can only bring off 1 or 2 players off the IR to return, and once you're there, that's your season, you're done. They're still working on a pandemic IR where you only have to miss a minimum. You can bring as many players off IR as you want, as long as they sit the minimum of 4 weeks. Devin Funchess, Green Bay, went on IR. That one actually hurts because I've been watching the Green Bay preseason games, and he was actually looking good. He had some great catches in week 1 and week 2. He was actually looking strong as a depth type guy, and that's without Rodgers throwing the ball to him. So that one actually sucks for me. If you guys want to stop on any of these names, just call it out, and
Funchess hasn't played a regular season game since week 1 in 2019, and he's had injury woes since then. He had a fair bit of hype when he was drafted out of Michigan back in 2015, but he never really lived up to the expectations. He had one really good year in 2017 with 8 touchdowns and 840 yards. But since then, it's really been a downward spiral. And I mean, with his injury issues, I'm really not surprised to see him move to the IR. And I don't know what he'd bring to a team next year.
I mean, like I said, he looked good in preseason. Obviously, he wasn't injured last year. He opted out last season. That's why he didn't play. So he's had a full year, almost 2 full years to rest up. Whether that has played a part in it or not, I don't know.
And how good did that do him?
Who knows? All right, Kerryon Johnson, running back, now in Philadelphia, has been placed on the IR. And if you're a member of our fantasy football league, you were probably thanking your lucky stars that you dropped him 2 weeks before this happened. You know who you are.
Okay, for the YouTube crew, this is my surprised face that Kerryon Johnson is hurt.
Looks a lot like Zach's surprise face.
Yeah. It's not surprising, and it sucks too because he had so much potential, and he reached it sometimes. He was not reliable. He couldn't stay healthy. I mean, if he had a good week, it was a really good week, and then it just went downhill. So it sucks.
Again, these are just names that I pulled that I actually recognized without having to do any research on them. Antonio Callaway, formerly of Cleveland, now of Kansas City, is put on IR. Is what it is. This one might actually hurt. Forrest Lamp, offensive guard, placed on IR in Buffalo. Started every game last year with the Chargers.
That seems like that would be significant. I can't see that not affecting them.
That's a tough
one. And it was a Moth's favorite football player.
All right, we're getting late. We can't be doing this anymore. Jared's falling apart on us.
Obviously, we already discussed him. A.J. McCarron, quarterback, Atlanta, placed on IR. And Michael Kendricks.
He's a perennial backup, if I ever saw one.
Michael Kendricks, who was looking to get a fresh start, the linebacker in San Francisco, has been placed on IR as well.
That sucks for him. Or them. Both.
Again, another player with so much wasted potential, I think. Because he got himself in some legal issues that were stupid kind. Yeah, insider trading? Really? Really? Dude watched Wall Street one too many times. Alright, that is going to wrap up the huddle for this week. And it is time to drop some Dynasty Dams. Not too much to talk about here because we're kind of in that, I don't want to say lull period, but we're sort of in that quieter period where things are shaking out as they are. I guess this question actually, I wrote it before all the Mac Jones stuff came out, around the same time anyway. Are there any rookies you guys see stealing the starting job? Well, these are guys that weren't projected to start week 1 at any point. So I'm not talking Trevor Lawrence, who was officially confirmed as the week 1 starter. I'm talking about like the Justin Fields, the Mac Jones, the guys of that type who weren't projected to start in week 1, who are making a case to start in week 1. Do you see any of them? Obviously, we talked about Mac Jones a lot in the other segment, so I guess besides him, are there any rookies you see stealing the starting job at the start of the season?
I don't. I think most of those spots are going to be wait and see. Whether it's week 3, week 7, week 9, who knows? But I think they're going to wait from starting the week 1.
The one I like is, it's kind of fizzled out a little bit in the past week, but I really, really liked Michael Carter stealing that starting running back job for the Jets. I took a look at their running back depth chart. It's not the greatest. I can see why they're going to do a running back by committee. Ty Johnson looked good in training camp. I mean, there's been talk of him sitting atop the depth chart, but projections for him are rarely beyond 400 yards right now, which is, about what you'd get for a running back by committee right now. Tevin Coleman in the preseason seems to have locked in the role, but he hasn't lived up to expectations lately, and I think he's best served for situational duties.
And obviously not a rookie.
Well, yeah. No, just looking through their
I understand.
depth chart
I get that.
Michael Perryman just injured his foot yesterday, and when he was given the opportunities to produce in the offense, he did not stand out. He averaged 3.6 yards per carry last year, not a starting running back, which leaves Michael Carter. I think just based on everything I've said, you can tell how muddy the situation right now is in New York. So it seems prime for a player like Carter to stand out, given the opportunity. I think if you're drafting, I would say pick him up on a late round flyer and just stash him until he breaks out and then solidifies his role in the offense. And I mean, it might take a little bit to get through the committee, but once he's there, I don't think they'll look back. And I am on the Michael Carter hype train right now, as slow as it may be going at the moment, but all aboard.
Okay. Oh, it's had this awkward silence. If you're not watching on YouTube, you just missed an epic sneeze face.
And he sneezed and his eyeballs flew out of his head.
A little bit. I look like a character in a comic or cartoon.
You look like Duckman.
Oh, Duckman, really?
Nah, you kind of look more like corn-fed.
Zach is muted and trying to talk to us, and if you're not watching on YouTube, you don't understand that.
What is this? These 1970 jokes? What's happening?
Duckman was a 90s cartoon. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought this was like when they didn't have colored ink yet.
We're old. We're not that old.
Yeah.
I mean, Jared's got me by a couple years, but again, we're not that old.
When you guys watched a movie in high school, did the film catch on fire?
I mean, I don't think they ever caught on fire, but early days we still had film projectors. Then again, that's probably because I was at a cheap school.
Did you guys have those computer dudes that you had to call in and can someone go get Billy so he can wheel it down to us?
No, we did that ourselves. But I digress. Yes, we're older, but not old. We have old in our league.
Hey, you guys just want to keep making jokes that I don't understand. This is the only way I'm going to get my part of the comedy in, because I don't get what you guys are laughing at.
I'm just laughing more that he made a Duckman joke. Good lord. I mean, this goes back to, we talked about this on another podcast that we were on last week, talking about watching Monday Night Raw on the new VR. I remember Duckman commercials back then during Raw.
Oh yeah, Duckman was on right after.
Yeah. I digress. We're old. Last topic in Dynasty Diamonds, I guess this only applies if you've really watched much preseason games, but who's impressed you so far? I mean, I guess this could kind of go in the booth review segment as much as anything else. It's not really Dynasty effective, but I stuck it in there because I didn't want to do a booth review segment.
I don't want to say who it's been.
You don't want to say who it's been, huh? Is that because they're on a roster and you're trying to acquire them, or because they're not on a roster and they're hoping you can pick them up?
It's because they're on a roster and I don't like whose roster they're on. Ramondre Stevenson has been a problem. That dude looks good. I don't think the Sony Michel trade is coincidental. It's not coincidental like that. They definitely there's definitely some correlation there. I'm getting tired. I can't talk anymore. But there is correlation from Sony Michel not being on New England and his play in preseason. That dude, I do not want him to be. Kieran does not deserve him. He does not in any way. I don't think he's a stud. Like I don't. Like, anything can happen. You never really know, right? That's just. But I don't. I don't think this means he's a stud in any way. What I do think though is he's a touchdown threat, and now you have at least like a flex option. You know what I mean? I think he'd be like the equivalent of Henry Ruggs, but at the running back position. You know what I mean? It's high risk, high reward type running back if you're gonna play him, because like he could easily just get zero touch. Like no, I shouldn't say zero, but like 4 or 5 touches, and they're goal line touches. Even if it's like 8 touches, they're like goal line touches, and he doesn't get in to the end zone, and he ends up with 14 yards, no touchdowns.
Yeah. Jared, I'm sure you probably have a list that's like a mile long for guys that have impressed you this preseason.
I actually do not. Mine is probably going to be a simple, easy answer, but Najee Harris has looked phenomenal this preseason. I mean, granted, he's beating up on teams that he's going to beat up on. I have zero faith in Dallas defense stopping any run game at the moment. They have proven nothing to me. So I think Pittsburgh had a good pick with Harris, and they're going to utilize him this year. And as far as dynasty goes, if you have him on your roster, don't sit him on your taxi squad. Don't sit him on your bench. He's going to be putting up numbers week 1.
He ain't no Kyle Pitts.
He's not Kyle Pitts. He's going to put up numbers, like I said.
Oh!
I'm getting connection issues.
Yeah.
Shots fired across the bow, and Jared has neither of these players on his dynasty roster.
I do not, and I am okay with that.
If it isn't fairly obvious, Zach has told us that he has Kyle Pitts, and I have Najee Harris, which is funny because I used Zach's pick to pick Najee, and Zach
breaking
used
news.
my pick to pick Kyle Pitts.
T. Higgins just tore his ACL. He's out for the season.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah.
At 1:30 at night, what's he doing? Dancing at the club?
Yeah.
He pulled a John Wall. He tore it in the shower.
All right. For me, I mean, I could pick like Najee or somebody, or Mac Jones or somebody off my roster who I've been paying more attention to, but I'm not. I'm gonna pick a guy who's on my actual team's roster in Green Bay. Kylan Hill has impressed me, working out of the running back position. I mean, obviously he's not going to be the number 1. He's not going to be the number 2. Those spots are locked up tight. But as the number 3 guy, if something happened to either Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon, I think that we'd still be in a good position with Kylan Hill. He has looked good. He's shown some speed and the ability to work. What the was that?
You heard that too. I don't know.
I did. Yeah, that was awkward. But no, he's worked through the tackles. He's worked outside. He's caught the ball a few times, and he's scampered into the end zone. He's just looked good. I've liked the look of him. He's shown me that something that, like I said, if something happened to AJ or Aaron, I'd be okay with that. And that's something that is a plus for a running back room where it is very likely that one of them is going to miss some time. Whether that's just injury or just taking off some series, but I feel confident having Kylan Hill running the ball.
What school did he come from? He's a rookie, right?
He is a rookie.
Texas A&M.
Was it A&M?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
I didn't think it was. I thought it was a smaller school.
He fell later than he was mocked. He was mocked higher than he.
He did. He did fall. He fell down to the 7th round.
Yeah.
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. Yes.
Where he opted out after 3 games in his senior season.
Yeah, he's 23 years old.
He is. He is older.
Wait, was he Mr. Irrelevant? He's picked 256. Is that
I think is Mr. Irrelevant 257.
okay?
I think it's 257. I could be wrong about that.
Either getting a talented player to the 7th round is anything, no matter what his
Yeah.
age is.
Yeah, no, it's definitely.
If he rushes for 500 yards, he'll be like one of the all-time leading rushers out of the 7th round.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Irrelevant of 2021 is Grant Stewart.
What's the
How
number?
did you forget about that?
I don't know. I just forgot. You know.
Let's be honest. If I'm gonna get picked in the 7th round, I kind of want to be Mr. Irrelevant because you get the car.
Yeah. He's a Houston linebacker picked by the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a Pro Bowler now, boys.
Yeah, right.
So that's my guy. That's who's taking
Okay,
my eye. Yeah, that's going to do it for this week's Dynasty Dimes. It is now time for the 2-minute drill, and this week, our boy Zach.
Wait,
Here.
me?
Yes,
I'm doing it.
you are doing it.
it.
You are running the
Alright,
2-minute
alright.
drill this week. You asked for it on Friday, Saturday, so
I like
your
asking questions.
unpreparedness is your own fault.
Oh, I'm ready. Okay. So I kind of wanted it to mix in with I figured the Dynasty Dime segment was going to be a little shorter than usual. So I kind of wanted it to mix in a little bit. If you were to draft a rookie, you know what I mean? Say they are relatively equal value. Would you rather draft the star wide receiver or the star running back?
For my for my real team or for my dynasty team?
For a dynasty team, if you're in a rookie draft, would you rather draft the star running back, which normally gives you higher upside early, or the star wide receiver, which gives you more longevity typically?
Can I answer with what I actually did and say both?
No, you know both in this. You didn't know.
But I actually did both. I mean, I drafted Najee
You only
and
got one pick. You had 2 picks when you did both.
yeah, but come on, man.
I think wide receiver has a longer term. I think it depends on what you need coming into your year. Do you need a stud running back who's going to start week 1 on a run heavy offense that you know is going to put up points? If that's what you're looking at, then of course draft the running back, slot him in there even in your flex if need be. But I think the value is there if that's what you want that year. If you are in a win now, or at least win in the next 2 years, I need value out of this guy immediately. Draft the running back and be okay with, the wheels falling off by year 4, just in case. If you're willing to wait it out, because wide receivers, you don't get as quick of a return on year 1, at least for wide receivers. If you're willing to wait it out a year or 2, then the value shows up for a long-term period. You're getting a guy 6, 7, 8 years. Amari Cooper's a good example of this. He had a fantastic, he's kind of an anomaly almost, because he had a fantastic year his first year in Oakland. And then he kind of fell off a little bit. And then when he went to Dallas, he just shot right back up, and he's been wide receiver 1 in Dallas ever since, and is a reliable top 20 pick every year. So I think it depends on kind of what you need for your team in the moment. So
yeah, I mean, if you got to pick one, it's the running back, because there's more you can do with that immediately. The star running back in the run-heavy offense, or presumably run-heavy offense, or well-utilized offense, is a better choice because there's less of them. Each team only has one RB1, and there are only a finite number of studs in the league. That there may be 10, 12 bona fide studs, that if your running back develops into one of those guys, you are sitting on a gold mine that you can, retool and move out and trade for, you know, a lot, really. The value is so much more for a stud running back than it is for a wide receiver because there's so many more. With teams occupying such a strong passing game in the current, way the game is played, most teams have guaranteed to have one, but most teams have two. And some even have more than that, where they're three deep, and it's easier to fill that hole as far as production goes than it is as an RB1. RB1, that production is quarterback level. You need that level of production, and obviously quarterbacks get a lot more points than running backs just because of the way the point systems work in fantasy football, unless you have some weird convoluted setup. But I think definitely take the running back because you can do more with it, whether that's keep it yourself or trade it off and retool your own team if that's what you need to do.
So going off this same kind of path, still kind of related. All my questions are going to be one or the other, but this one's still fantasy related.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going you're early in the season, right? You're trying to pick a player, we'll say a flex position. Do you go with the trusted vet as your selection? Or do you pick the promising young player that, you believe you're like, for example, we didn't know, but Justin Jefferson, like I missed out on a few weeks on Justin Jefferson because he's young, he's a wide receiver, you don't know how much they're going to be implemented in the offense. And I missed some good weeks that I wish I played him. So if you're early in the season and you have a guy like this, so for example, Johnny, Devontae Smith is one of your guys,
mm-hmm.
and you were in a spot where you had to play a flex position, Jer, I assume T. Higgins could be your kind of guy. Do you go with the promising young guy, or do you go with the trusted vet?
I would go with the trusted vet. Just from a reliability perspective. I personally don't like the unknown factor when setting my lineup. I would like at least to give me a guy who can reliably get me 8 points in a flex spot every week. Some weeks, hey, he might get 12, 15. I'm okay with that. But like if he can hit the bar that I've set for that week, and he's not like my stud player, but I can slot a guy in there who I know is reliable, who's can put up reliable enough points. He's not going to be, wide receiver 5, 6, 7, but give me a top 10 tight end, and I'll slot him in my flex spot all year, who can get me a comfortable 10 points every week, and I don't even need to look at that spot. He's set. Slot him out for the bye week, and then bring him back in, and just forget that spot exists, because you need something you can rely on in that slot, as to where if you play rookies who have really high upside, but the floor is so low for them that you're not sure that they can produce week in and week out, I think go with the vet.
Johnny?
I mean, I think you kind of, beginning of the season anyway, you have to go with the vet that you know what their performance level is going to be, because that. They have the bar set from, historical statistics, and, presumably they're in the same system. Obviously those factors all make a huge difference. But, a guy entrenched in his system who consistently puts up, 10 to 12 points every week, we know those guys. That's who I'd want in my flex at the beginning. I would rather look back on a season and be like, damn, if I'd have played this guy those weeks, there could have been something. I mean, you talked about Justin Jefferson, but I sort of had the opposite with Chase Claypool, who didn't really do much the first few weeks, but then he popped off. And then he dropped, and then popped off again, and that's where he stayed pretty much the rest of the season. So rookies are fickle in that regard. They're not always going to be where they are. They need to set their bar. They need to establish their rapport with, the team and the offense. And once they've done that, then you can be more consistent and be like, well, it's week 4. This guy's put up 10 plus points every week. Let's put him in there, and give it a try because he's a rookie. And whether that means, you now have a veteran asset that you can trade for, to help you fill a hole somewhere else, or just even, to add to your draft pool or whatever. There's so much more options after week 3, week 4 than at the beginning. Because at the beginning, you want guaranteed points. That's what you want. You want to win as often as you can in those early weeks, and rookies are fickle. There are those that go out and just eat and eat all day. Obviously this is more with wide receivers. Running backs, you can be a bit more. If it's a starting running back, you play them. It doesn't matter where they are. You play them because they're the number 1 running back, and running backs are going to get points. No matter the offense, running backs are going to get points. Even if it's only flex numbers, they're going to get at least that, even as a rookie, as long as they're the starter. So if it's a running back, I'd probably start them. If it's not, then I'd leave them on the bench and play the guy that I know is going to get them. So I guess based on that, running back, start them. Non-running back, wait it out, see what they are.
Okay, that's fair. Those are fair points. Very fair points. So for the last question, if you're starting a real franchise, you're drafting early, your offense is bare. Like, I mean bare. You know what I mean? You're trying to go. Do you draft your franchise quarterback first, or do you address your offensive line first?
Oof.
I think you go with quarterback first, because he is the face of your team. He's the guy everybody is going to be talking about. You need to build your brand of football if you're building a team. And the offense runs through the quarterback, essentially. So that's your king piece for your team. You can build around him later for sure, and you'll hit and miss on guys. And ideally, your quarterback doesn't get beat up and break his leg before week 10. And, it's all downhill from there. You take a guy that you can build your team around, and the quarterback is that position. So I would take a quarterback and then put pieces around him that help accentuate his positives. Can he throw deep? Get him a speed guy on the outside. You take what the quarterback can do and you build around that. And lately, NFL franchises have started to do that, because before they would draft a quarterback and fit him into their system with varying and low degrees of success. And then they would wonder, why is this quarterback so bad? He's not fitting into my system. Well, of course not. You take a pocket quarterback and you put him in your system that doesn't work that way, it's not going to work. So you take quarterback first, and that's why Kansas City is having success right now. You take Patrick Mahomes, who is a relatively unconventional quarterback, and you build around him, that you take what he can do well and give him opportunities to do it better. Because he can beat defenses if you put the right pieces around him. That includes offensive line, that includes wide receivers, tight ends, everything. You build around that centerpiece, you build your entire team around that centerpiece, and you're going to see success if you pick the right quarterback, of course. But I think that's where you start, and then you build around it.
I mean, I don't want to say differently, but I mean, let's be real. A team knows who they're going to draft if they're going for that big quarterback. They know it right away. They know it in February and March. So you have just based on, unlike other sports where free agency comes after the draft, football is different in that it comes before. So I think that you can kind of do both to a certain degree. Like, you if if you know you're drafting a quarterback in April and your offensive line is crap in March, I think you try and fill those holes in March before you draft the quarterback. Now you still draft the quarterback. There's no debating that. You're going to draft the quarterback.
Yeah.
But you know that. I think that decision is made first. So I guess if that's the precipice, which one do I decide to do first? I decide to draft the quarterback first, and then if I have to fix the O-line, I do that in free agency before, sort of with the carrot of this is the guy we're going to pick. Obviously that only works if you're number one. If you have
yes. Sorry, go ahead.
If you have that first overall selection, then you can pretty much make that pick whenever you want. As long as the player has declared for the draft and they're eligible, you can pretty much make your intentions known as early as you want. I mean, we've seen guys.
Well, sorry, go. I continue.
We've seen guys sign contracts historically up to a month before the draft even occurs. Have contracts signed and negotiated that far in advance. Now, obviously, they don't do that now because contracts are more filled out prior to, and the only things you have to change are the guy's name and how much of it is guaranteed. Those are really the only things that change based on draft picks nowadays. So you don't really have as much to negotiate beforehand. But if you know your guy, and you've made that clear to them, then you can use that as a building chip in March for free agency. You can bring in some of these guys and be like, yeah, this is the guy you're going to be. This is the team. This is the quarterback. Do you want to be part of this or not? And you can build it up that way. I'm not going to use the draft pick to draft an O-line stud and then a quarterback later. That doesn't make sense because O-line you can sort of fill as you go. Like, you can draft a great O-line in the third and fourth round. You can't always draft a great quarterback then.
You made a very good point, especially with the first overall pick. So I hear what your point is. Mm-hmm. Jared's basically reflects either way. But say you were, instead of the first overall pick, you were more in the Giants situation with Daniel Jones, where your O-line is clearly depleted, needs a lot of work. You're at a spot where you can take Daniel Jones, and that's your guy, but you can't wave that guy around like the Jaguars can with Trevor Lawrence. It's like, come play with Trevor Lawrence, da-da-da-da-da. Everyone knows they're taking him, so we can promote it. Like,
oh, for sure.
You're not doing that. You're not telling anybody. So if you're in that situation, do you keep the same mindset? Do you approach it different?
I think the difference is between picking first and picking, like, fourth or fifth or, I don't want to say mid-first round, but, early, late, with the early teens, the 10s, 11s, 12s, the post-4s, pre-15s picks. You're drafting a quarterback. It's just a question of who's the best available on the board. And you don't just pick one guy because that's just ridiculously stupid. But you have, a handful of guys, and you're drafting a quarterback, so you can still build it up that way. You just can't dangle the name.
Well, the Bears did the same thing. Like, they had to move up to get Justin Fields because they knew, okay, he's not going to be here when our pick comes, so we have to go get him.
You just used a great example. So I want to touch in on this if I can, if that's okay.
No, you're good.
For sure.
So, and Justin Fields is a great part for me to segue in. So Justin Fields, to me, is a great example. He's almost like this year's, not player comparison-wise, but situation-wise, to Deshaun Watson. You know what I mean? Had a lot of hype. Everyone out there for a long time said this guy's could be the most talented. I know he had Trevor Lawrence to compete with, so he didn't get as much as the number one. But there are a lot of scouts that thought he had the most talent in this draft. Yet he fell, and a team moved up for him. And not only did a team move up for him, that team had a very bad O-line. So it fits the context of what we're talking about. Yeah, and both those situations, well, I shouldn't say both because Justin Fields is to be determined. But when it comes to Watson, that worked out. You know what I mean? Like, that, who cares about your O-line? You take Watson. So where I lean towards, I think it's more if you truly believe that's the guy, you know what I mean? Like you love this dude. Not I kind of like him. He's a project. We can like you think he is the guy. You take the quarterback.
Mhm.
But if it's a question like Daniel Jones, insert lots and lots of quarterbacks, where like uh, I know he's not supposed to be starting, but Jordan Love, like if you took a Jordan Love, you know what I mean? You better have an O line. You can't take like Trey Lance even this year for San Fran. I don't think you can take a Trey Lance and not have an O line. You know what I mean? Well, maybe they like him a lot, but I think he's got question marks.
Mhm.
My whole point is, if you don't fully love that guy and you're not fully enamored by what he brings and don't think he's like a day one starter, you address the O line because that guy, if he's not ready to play, he's definitely not ready to play behind a bad O line. You know what I mean? Now, if you have Deshaun Watson or a guy like that, you draft the quarterback and you deal with what comes later because you don't miss Deshaun Watson.
Same with Joe Burrow too.
Yeah,
Speaking of bad
another
O-lines.
one. Yeah, yes, another one.
That's an example of doing things wrong.
Well, they
Just
did
be-
it
just
right
because
by
you-
drafting Joe Burrow. I don't know about Jamar Chase. That's to be determined.
I think that's the
like-
difference between the situations, though, right? Like, I mean, they knew they were drafting Joe. They knew. They should have brought in some O-line guys, even if it's not studs. It's serviceable, salvageable guys that are going to keep your quarterback standing, not the turnstiles that they already had employed that they proceeded to then use.
The problem with that is they're competing with the Kansas City Chiefs, aka Super Bowl champs from 2 years ago and Super Bowl finalists from last year, who are also chasing the same position. So it's like, hey, come play with us in Cincinnati. And Casey's like, we got Patrick Mahomes here. And they're like, Joe seems nice. He's a great guy, Like I'll shake his hand. Good luck to that guy.
I think there the
I'm
difference
heading to
though
Kansas
is
City, and or Lindsley, like another guy, like the center. He's like, Burrow, Cincinnati, Los Angeles is pretty nice, and Justin Herbert knows how to throw a football. I think I'm gonna go, play in unfortunately for places like Cincinnati and stuff, like
that's what I'm
you
saying.
don't
Like
really got it.
that's the difference between pre and post, right? Like you can sort of address that before you actually make the draft pick when you know you've got that pick. Like they had Joe Burrow in their pocket at the end of the season. As soon as they locked up that pick, they knew. They knew he was their guy.
I agree with that. I agree. When they drafted him, they should have did more. They drafted what, Jonah Williams though, right? Am I correct? When he tore his ACL or something? Am I wrong? The Alabama tackle or something?
I don't think you're wrong. I think you are right.
I think he was. I think they had 2 firsts or something. I think they drafted a tackle. Maybe it was in the second round, but I'm pretty sure he tore his ACL in his rookie year. He's supposed to play this year for him. I think it's Jonah Williams. Maybe give me a quick Google search. But
he is a tackle for the Bengals, so I'm going to say probably. He was drafted 11th in the first round of 2019. So
the year before Joe,
the year before
right?
Joe. Yeah, that was the
So
murder.
they did try to do the pre-work like you were stating to.
Well, they kind of did the opposite, right? Like they did in that regard. They tried to improve the O-line before picking their guy. Whether that's they knew Joe was going to be there next year and they thought they had a good shot at him, or however, but they tried to build the O-line before getting a quarterback, which made sense because at the time they still had Andy, did they not? 2019 draft, they would have still had Andy.
That's why most people thought they were going to go with Penei Sewell because they thought they'd give him the left tackle and let Jonah go slide over at the right tackle, and then they have both their tackles locked up for Joe for the future. Jamar still might work out. Hopefully they get offensive. I don't want to see Joe Burrow get effed up. I like that dude in college, so.
As a guy resorting on him to be my starting quarterback, I kind of don't want him to get killed either.
Yeah, I hear you. But that's it, boys. That's a good show.
This has been a great show.
Okay.
Had a lot of news today, so we definitely went a little longer than usual, but still 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Wow, yeah, we passed that 2 hours and 17 minutes ago. About 2 hours 20 minutes. It's a good time. Good time. I've had fun. I'm sure you guys have had fun. I hope that wherever you're watching or listening, you've had fun as well. Again, if you want to be part of our upcoming top 10 project, reach out to us on Twitter or Facebook, and you can join the voting panel to determine the placements on that list. It was weird. My audio kind of, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, if you want to be a part of the voting panel for our top 10 committee, hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and you can have your voice heard in our voting process. For that, Jared, tell them where they can find us on Twitter.
You can find us at Handoff Inside. I know it's backwards, but that is the Twitter account.
No, it reads it right. I can see it right, anyways.
Yeah, it's the right way. It's just blurry as crap and hard
backwards
to read.
For me. Yeah, so it's at Handoff Inside is the Twitter account. Give us a follow, check it out. We post, updates, opinions, videos, articles, all sorts of stuff. It's a good time. And where can they find us elsewhere, Johnny?
Oh, you can find us on Twitter. I just about did the same thing you did. On Facebook at The Inside Handoff, facebook.com/The Inside Handoff. That is a page. We'll eventually add a group as well, so you can, be more into the conversations there. And of course, you can also find us on YouTube. Search The Inside Handoff Podcast. We haven't been around long enough to have a custom URL, but we'll get that soon enough. Or you can.
And we'll get an ID eventually when I stop slacking.
And you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts: Spotify, Google, all of your favorite podcatchers. I don't know if we're on Apple yet. I haven't checked. I don't think we are, but we are everywhere else that you get. Your podcast, but most specifically on Spotify, which is, where I know most people get theirs. So we hope you've enjoyed this week's episode, and we hope you join us again next week, where we will have the next round of cuts is tomorrow, I believe is cut day. So we'll definitely, probably, most likely have some names to talk about of consequence who get cut or find new homes in the next week. Hopefully not many injuries to talk about, because that's something we don't want for anyone. And yeah, for Zach, for Jer, I'm Johnny V. This is the Inside Handoff Podcast. We'll see you next week.